So here we are, week 2. Maybe last week you rewrote Cars or Shrek or Pride and Prejudice or, some fairy tale that you know by heart. And not necessarily rewrote. I want to emphasize it's just an exercise to shift our perspective. It's to shift our mindset around how stories are created and why they resonate with us. So writing from a different perspective gives us appreciation for the craft of that story. There's certain people and there's certain words that are used by authors or musicians that resonate with me on a deeper level. Like, they're observing something that I know completely, but I've never thought of it in that way. Like, they just say a thing and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, like that is exactly it. That is a perfect description of that thing. For me, it was Greg Brown on his song Down in There. And it's a song about him, telling stories about his childhood and, going fishing and, having his first kiss and all this stuff. And there's this line. He's like on a Ferris wheel, or I can't remember exactly where they are, but he's on a date with this girl. And he says, summer was invented for her to wear that dress. And it's such a beautiful way of putting it. But also it's like he could have just said she looked pretty, right? Like, that's the observation. That's the thing that he's trying to convey. But what really conveys is, more than just pretty. Like, the whole season was created so that she could wear the dress that she is wearing. That's like next level beauty. And it's that kind of observational poetry that he's putting out there that just like struck a chord, and I think great authors, great musicians, great poets, great photographers, great painters, they do things, they have observations, and then they spin it in a way that you're seeing it anew. You're seeing it in a fresh way. And so what we have to do is observe a lot. Some of my favorite photographers, they're able to read a scene so perfectly and execute on it that it's mind-blowing what they can see. And the only reason that they got there, the only reason they're able to do that is because they have practiced observation. The more you observe, the less you enter into it and more step back from what you're observing, right? Like the word observation means that you're not living in it, you're kind of apart from it. So we have to take a step back and not live in the world, but just observe it and see things for what they really are and ask questions about the things that we observe. So it's a very meditative process of like practicing observation. Maybe it's a shadow on a wall, maybe it's the way someone looks, maybe it's all these things, and the ones that are forefront in our mind are the ones that we can use for inspiration for other things. All of those observations, they come from just, they're like little crumbs of life. And so from those crumbs of life, we can create story. We can create something bigger and have more impact than just that little thing. But that's like the essence of a story, is that observation. I think there's a little bit of mystique around storytelling in thinking that it has to be just created out of nothing, or not really from anything, especially like novels or things like that, creative fiction writing. Like, fiction writing has a little bit of mystique to it, and we're like, wow, how did that author think of that? Well, it came from observation and it came from life. It came from real things that he experienced, or maybe stories that he gathered from other people. A story is this. It's 4 C's. You have your character, you have your circumstance, you have your choice, and you have your change. Those are it. That's all the story is. With these 4 C's, we can kind of start to map. We can kind of have an outline for where we're going with the story, and they're just kind of prompts to get us to start thinking, right? The next thing you want to do whenever you're figuring out your outline and doing all that stuff is, what is my purpose? Like, if it's storytelling through photography, like, what is my purpose here? Why am I doing X? Why am I painting X? Why am I writing a novel about X? Is it to entertain people? Is it to educate people? Is it just to convince people of your perspective? Is it to tell a story of an underdog, of injustice, of, there's all these things. We have purpose in everything that we're doing, but we just need to find it first. What we're going to do is, for this week, we're going to create a story. We're going to create an outline, and you are going to be the main character. It doesn't have to be you. I mean, it is you, but it doesn't have to be you, like the person. It could be, you could be a squirrel, you could be a goblin, you could be, whatever you want to be. Just, whatever that character is that you create is going to have your same struggles in your life. You're going to draw upon your past to write this character's backstory. So that leads us into character, our first C. The character is you. It is the world you create for this character. It's just kind of like the baseline. Then we'll move into circumstance. And the circumstance is something changes in that world, either in the character or in the world around him. Think back to that story circle, the hero's journey. There's a place and time whenever something from the outside world enters into this other world, and that is our circumstance, our change. So it could be as simple as, like, our character has lunch with an old friend, and then just like that shifts their perspective on life, and that is a circumstance change. It's an inciting incident. Then we're going to move into circumstance, or like a complication, right? And that complication allows our character to see the world differently and make a choice if he's going to stay status quo or go this other direction on this journey. It could be a bad journey, could be a good journey. It's up to you. Then there's a change. There's how that hero overcame those obstacles that he faced. I know I already covered all the C's, all the 4 of them, but there's another C. It's consequence, which is just the new world. It's the new status quo. It's the new place that this character is. Both, maybe the world stays the same, but he is different. Or maybe the world has changed and he is the same. It's just open-ended. You can kind of run with it wherever you want to go. After we do the outline, this week is going to be some hard work. And I stole this, borrowed it rather, from one of my heroes, Neil Gaiman. So Neil Gaiman is a brilliant novelist, and this is one of his exercises. So we're going to do our outline, and we're going to journal and be honest with ourselves, and we're going to write about a time and try to be a little bit more honest than you want to be. We're going to write about a time when you were deeply embarrassed, when you regret something that you did, the saddest moment of your life, or a secret you're afraid to tell someone. And you write that down. Just on a blank sheet of paper. If you don't have a journal, blank sheet of paper is fine. Then you take that work and you find someone that you trust. Or if you're a little nervous about doing that, you can read it aloud to yourself. But you read it aloud. Then while you're reading it aloud, you make observations about yourself. We're focusing on observing ourselves today. This week, we're observing ourselves. And so while you're reading you're going to pay attention to your body. You're going to pay attention to the thoughts that you're having, the anxiety that comes out whenever you're reading these words. And just note them. Write them down. That's it. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Rumi. Kind of. I think it's kind of bastardized, but whatever. It's good nonetheless. It's, if I can sing like a bird, not worried about what other people will think, there's nothing that I cannot do. So until next week, guys, be well, do good work, stay disciplined. Peace.